welcome everyone. Thank you so much for attending. My name is Eric Cox. I am a representative of Netcapital, heading up our West Coast operations. We have with us Juan Young, who is the CEO of Melanence. How you doing, Juan?
I'm doing well, man. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for taking this opportunity to do
Oh,
this. This is good.
yeah, it's our absolute pleasure. So today, I'm sure some of you have attended in the past, but we will be hosting a live Q&A. I will moderate. I will ask some questions to get us started, but please, the true value comes from participants asking questions through the Q&A functionality built into Zoom. Chat is great, but the Q&A functionality in Zoom really helps us track and make sure that we address as many questions as possible. We are recording this, so if for anybody, if you would like to share this, there will be a link provided to all that registered, and you will be able to, they will be able to ask questions directly through the Netcapital landing page, Melanence's landing page on Netcapital. So Melanence is currently fundraising on Netcapital. We're really grateful to have them. I think it's a fantastic company and team. And if you need any more information outside of the Q&A today, please go to netcapital.com/companies/Melanence, and you can actually ask questions directly in there. And there's also some more information about the company. But we are here to engage. So while we're here, welcome, Juan. I'd love if you want to kick it off, just share a little bit about Melanence, and then we'll go into yourself and the team after that.
So Melanence is an online learning platform for communities of color. So the way I describe Melanence generally is, if you think of a Skillshare, LinkedIn Learning hybrid, we're a hyper niche focused platform, focusing primarily on communities of color, but really developing and creating some online learning content to help communities of color upskill. We say build skills, build strong networks, and then an opportunity to actually earn some additional revenue as well. So I'm happy to talk a little bit more about really what that looks like. I'm sure you'll ask me some questions, but we're taking online learning and really trying to diversify it and make it a way where communities of color feel comfortable being on there and learning and growing and taking their entrepreneurial or professional journeys to the next level.
That's fantastic. And yes, we will continue to allow questions to come into Q&A. While we're waiting for that, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background, Juan, why you get excited about this when you wake up in the morning, and a little bit about your team that you've assembled.
Yeah, it's interesting being a founder. One of the things, I think one of the most challenging things sometimes is really to think about the distance travel and how everything that has happened and every job that you've had, every position you've been in, have brought you to this moment. And so when I look back over my career, my mom's an educator, an entrepreneur. So she ran a preschool for 23 years before she passed, and I was actually the assistant director of her preschool. And so the idea of early childhood education and education being a great equalizer, neither one of my parents went to college, but they said, okay, education is a great equalizer. This is what's going to change the trajectory of our family. And so my mom started this preschool. I was their assistant director. She passed, and I became the director of the preschool. So at 23 years of age, I was running a preschool with 35 kids, preschoolers, and a staff of 6. And so at the time, I just thought, here I am, just continuing the family business and the family legacy. But really, my passion for education was really instilled at that point. My passion for entrepreneurship, I saw the highs and the lows at a very early age of entrepreneurship. And so, when I talk about like my background, from there, from working in childhood education and early childhood education as a preschool director, I went into the nonprofit sector where I ran youth leadership and development training programs on the campus of the University of Southern California here in California for about 8 years. And we worked with a population of high school students where about 90% of the students who we worked with went to schools that were Title I. So which means that because of the socioeconomic designation of the school, most of the students were on free and reduced lunch. And so, this passion for fighting for, the underdog and fighting for underserved communities, fighting for, underrepresented communities, specifically when it came to education, was something that really drove me through my career And I started working for some other nonprofits. But as we know, sometimes working in the nonprofit sector, like if a lot of times it's really great, it pulls on heartstrings, but it doesn't always pay you really well sometimes. So I started getting into the professional realm. And so when I got into the for-profit sector, my background was in marketing. And so I did a lot of marketing. And so I say all that to bring me to, kind of present day when it came to Melanence. And the reason why I started Melanence, the day when I said, you know what, I have to do something, this was so frustrating, is I was on LinkedIn Learning, and I wanted to learn about SEO a little bit more. And so I typed in SEO and the LinkedIn Learning, and I had to scroll for 12 pages before I found anybody who looked like me. And I said, there had to be an easier way. Like I just was so frustrated that we didn't have me as a Black man. We weren't represented on the platform. And I knew that there were Black men in marketing. I knew that there were Black women in marketing. I knew there were other people of color who are doing really great things in a marketing space. And so I understood, and I flashed back to the importance of representation for the high school students who I worked with. And I took these kids and I took these students on the campus of USC who had never even thought of being on a campus and such a prestigious university. And I saw their eyes light up, and I saw how things started to change. And I said, you know what, nothing has changed from these high school students to the professional realm. And a lot of times, and as I started having more conversations, people said, yeah, I want to do this, but I don't even know anybody who looks like me in these spaces. I don't even know where to go. I don't even know where to find, information from people who look like me, who I believe has shared experiences. So that's why we created Melanence. But when we talk about the team, I thought it was really important to assemble a team who all believed in the mission of Melanence, right? And so our mission is to empower communities of color to change the world. And so I started to go through my list. And I was able to find a really strong CFO, Juan Young, who is very seasoned corporate finance professional, 9+ years, and who also understands and really passionate about this space. We have a chief learning officer, Juan Young, who has over 8 years of experience working in curriculum development and the higher education level, working for one of the top, medical colleges in the country. And so when it comes to curriculum development and working with people and taking their content and putting it and understanding how to create it in a way for adult learning, where people can actually engage in the content, learn the content, and stick. She's a dynamo in that area. Simone Justice, who came from the East Coast, and was one of the youngest operations managers for a bike share company, a very large bike share company. So just dynamo when it comes to operations, and really passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion as well. I have a senior product manager. Her name is Ashley Williams. Ashley is one of the only people on our team, and she's worked with Mattel, some large corporations when it comes to the product manager role. So extremely well versed in that area. She's the only person on the team who actually sought me out, who said, listen, she reached out to me on LinkedIn. I see what you're doing with Melanence. I have to be involved, and I'm not going to take no for an answer. I said, Ashley, we're kind of early. We don't really need a product manager, senior product. No, I'm going to be on your team. And after about, 3 or 4 weeks, she was on our team. We are onboarding a CTO right now. So we have we're excited about that. It's a long process to get a CTO on board. But we've been working with a very great technical company who's been serving as our kind of de facto technical liaisons and technical team. And then we have an advisor on our team who 20+ years of experience running incubators and accelerator programs. So Gary Polk, and who's extremely well versed in that area as well. So that's kind of our team. When I talk about our team, when I talk to people about our team, I say we're humble, hungry, and smart. I think we are a team that is well positioned as our product changes. Because I know that there will be pivots in the future, things will change, there'll be different things, but I think this team assembled is the team that can bring it to fruition, partly because I think one of our advantages is we are also our target user. we've all experienced some of the similar challenges, and we all are also the target consumer for our product. So we understand it really well, and we're really passionate to see this thing come to fruition.
That's fantastic. And I think those are really important features of a team. And thank you so much for elaborating on that. I know investors really emphasize how the team and their ability to be able to make any changes that might come up. Can you share, big picture for those who might not know yet? You touched on it a lot. Not seeing representation in the educators. Can you talk about why that's a problem and kind of some of the metrics around that problem, and then how you're solving that?
Yeah. So, when we talk, and I think this is one of the things. This is obviously really important because we've gotten questions. Hey, well, why can't people just use YouTube, right? Why can't people use and I liken it to say, this one size fits all approach in education is our broken model. And we look at the way lots of industries have changed over the last 100 years, and education is one of those industries that is yet to change, right? It is still very similar. The way we teach now is very similar to how we taught 60 years ago. And what we're finding is that all of the data is showing that even from a young age, right? So we'll talk about early childhood, and then we can talk about adult learning after that. Early childhood, it will show that a student of color does better when they have a teacher of color. It shows, right? Like all the data shows students of color are more likely to perform better. They have higher graduation statistics when they have a teacher of color. When we talk about going and moving to the professional realm, right? We have all the data shows that if you're a person of color, you're less likely to be professionally developed at work. If you're a person of color, you're less likely to have a mentor, right? If you're a person of color, you're less likely to be promoted to senior leadership. And so when we look at some of these early childhood things, right, and talk about how we are training individuals to go into these professional positions, there's a gap there, and the disconnect and the gap is the cultural relevancy of what we're learning. And so when you drop someone into someone who is 6'8" and you take them into a department store, yes, there's clothes there, and just because there are clothes there does not mean that all of those clothes are going to fit the guy who is 6'8" or the young lady who is 6'2" the same, right? I know I've had a problem because I have big thighs, and so sometimes my jeans don't fit me in the waist and they fit me in the thighs, right? And so it's the same thing with education. We are saying that education and community is really important. And it's not just the information, it's the cultural relevancy of the information. It's how do you apply that information? And so how do we know this is important? Not only from our own personal experiences, we surveyed over 1,000 potential users on our platform. 98% of them said it is extremely important to have an instructor who looks like me, who's teaching me content. It is 97% said it is extremely important for the content to be culturally relevant to me, right? And cultural relevancy is not just who you are as a person. It's your socioeconomic background, right? It is, where you're located in the country. Content in California for someone, someone starts a business and the challenges of California is very different than someone in the Midwest, right? It's not all the same. And so the ability for us to create this platform, we think that there's a huge market there, right? There's an $11 billion market on self-paced. $11 billion a year is spent on self-paced e-learning by communities of color. And we think, based on the information that we're seeing and the lack of representation on a lot of the larger platforms, we think there's a much larger market. We actually believe that we can create a new market, right? Because what happens when you feel like you're not being serviced? What happens when you feel like you're not being put on the front of, you're not being thought of, right? You don't tend to use those platforms. You don't tend to leverage those platforms. What we also found is that when we first began, we just said we wanted to diversify all online learning. And what we found is, no, that wasn't the case. Like, there were certain types of courses and certain type of content that people could care less who's teaching them those things. And those were the highly technical courses. And when it came to technical skill courses, It didn't matter who was teaching them. If it was about Excel, they wanted to learn about Excel. It didn't matter who was teaching them. But when it came to the soft skill courses, when it came to how do I apply this information, right? That is when that representation was really important. And so that's where we believe we're making a mark. That's where we believe we're different, is because we're creating culturally relevant content from the perspective of communities of color for communities of color. And that's something that we haven't seen a lot of platforms being able to do. And I think that is where we're trying to make an impact.
Yeah, that's really important, and I think what you're building here is a marketplace. You're connecting, but people who are trying to consume content and learn, as well as those who are actually providing that content. So can you talk about the other side of the coin there? How are you? What type of groups are you targeting to bring on from the professor side? How are you bringing them on? How are you enticing and encouraging them to join? Tell me a little bit about that side of the market.
Yeah, so what we found when we did our survey, we asked what category is the most important for you to learn. Overwhelmingly, about 70% of every person who responded said entrepreneurship. And so what we decided to do is we doubled down on entrepreneurship, right? And so we are targeting entrepreneurs who currently have courses, or who currently have courses on alternative platforms. And so it's a lot easier for them to bring a course from LinkedIn Learning over to our platform, or have a course from Skillshare. And so our team, scours the internet, and we search. Every single day we're looking, and we're pulling about 100 instructors, and we're emailing them. And one of the things that we're doing, we're setting up calls with them, and we're saying, it's me giving my pitch. This is why this is important. There's a market here who wants to tap into what you have. And I mean, the response has been great. The response has been overwhelming. When we first put it out, we had over 300 people apply to be an instructor on the platform. And this was in the first 30 days. This was really exciting. Currently, to make it even easier, what we found was the challenge was people didn't have a camera, lighting, video equipment, and they were waiting to get this nice setup. And so we established a partnership. So we have a partnership now with a company called Try Boxed Up. They're a Black-owned AV rental company. And what we've established is we actually have a package deal now where we are sending out a professional DSLR camera, lighting, and microphones to instructors for 4 days for them to record content. And what that's allowing us to do is remove the friction from getting content on our platform. But what's also happening is instructors are now taking advantage of getting this kit, and they're recording multiple courses at one time, right? And so where it might have taken us, maybe a month to get 1 or 2 courses, from a person, now in 30 days, we're able to get 4, 5, 6, 7 courses. And then we are also internally are offering to professionally edit their videos. And so, these are some of those things that we're doing, and really people are they see this as an additional way to reach another demographic that they're not reaching on their platforms, right? And so, I think one of the largest incentive for people now for instructors, it's the ability to make some money, but our instructors are telling us, like, it's not even about the money right now. Really, it's the ability to take this knowledge and this information and give it back to their community. And that is something that they've been looking for, haven't been able to find where they do this. They're making tons of money selling it in a lot of different places, but they really want to find opportunities to connect with their community and find their version of themselves on our platform.
Wow, that's really exciting, and just lowering the barrier to entry, granting kind of democratizing access to this space. That resonates. That definitely resonates with us here at NetCapital. You did say, for a lot of these instructors, it's not about the money, but for a lot of these investors, it is. So let's talk a little bit about the business model. How much are the customers paying for consuming the content, and then how much is the platform contributing to the providers of that content?
Yeah, so currently, because we're so early, our price point is, everyone gets the great price, currently, right? We first started off, we started to think, currently it's $12 a month. So the community can pay $12 a month and have access to the online learning content on our platform. So they'll have access to any webinars that we do, they'll have access to any pre-recorded interviews that we do. And so we have probably about 30 or 40 of those, a library of 30, 40 of those that we're posting on the platform with different people in different industries. And then all of the online learning content, they'll have access, unlimited access to all of those videos. And on the flip side, what we do is we take 30% of our revenue. We take the 30% of our revenue and we put that aside for our instructors, and we pay our instructors from that 30%. And instructors are paid monthly based on their views on the overall platform. So if one instructor accounts for 10% of the views, then an instructor will get paid 10% of that instructor pot. How we do see this though working, one of the things as I've been having more conversations and internal conversations is originally we viewed ourselves as being the one of the low cost leaders, right, in this industry. But as we started to really think about that and we had more conversations with different investors and et cetera, our price point actually doesn't have to be the lowest out there. Because if we're providing more value, if we say that, two things, if we're saying we're providing more value than other platforms because we're making really culturally relevant content, then we need to also find a way to price that in a way where people value that as well. And so we did it, we try to use data. So we sent a survey out, and part of that survey is, came back that 60% of every person who responded said, I would pay anywhere from $10 to $15, for this platform, for these type of features, for solving this problem for me. 30% said we actually would pay anywhere from $15 to $20 for this, right? And so we do think there's an opportunity to have a multi-tiered approach, and we do see that in the future as we continue to build. We're excited. There's an additional feature that after we finish raising that we really think is going to really completely change the game for us and will allow us to change our pricing model. And what that's going to be is, right now, since we're focusing on entrepreneurship, I'll share with you all first. The big thing is being able to connect with other people in the industry. And so we want to be able to leverage our platform and our technology to allow individuals to come on our platform, and we pair them with an accountability group of 10 to 15 other entrepreneurs in the beginning, right? Because we're going to really focus on entrepreneurship, and to pair them with an accountability group and give them a framework on how to meet, how to hold each other accountable. So really looking at adding a peer mentoring feature on the platform that would really change the game in a way that, a Slack channel that you can't get in just a Slack channel, or you can't get in just, being in a Facebook group with, 1,900 other people, is really leveraging our technology and asking questions that says, what is your professional goal? What is your entrepreneurial goal? What are the ways that you're really strong in? Where are you really strong at? Where are places that you want to, really grow? And then pairing you with 10 to 15 other people, entrepreneurs or professionals of color who can help you and be accountable, who you'll be accountable to. I think that would be really powerful, and that's something that we also would charge a little bit more for. But we're hearing overwhelmingly that this is something that people would really love, in addition to all the other online learning content.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And one thing that I like that I consistently hear as a theme throughout this discussion is, you're really data driven. You're not building and then sampling and surveying. You're really surveying and then building based off of what the demand is out there. And I think that's a really important approach to startup life. Can we talk and please continue to fill into the Q&A here as much engagement as possible. This is fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about the market size. We're talking about ed tech, education technology. There have been a lot of players coming into this space. There's a lot of money to be made here. Can you tell us a little bit about the size of the overall market?
Yeah, so when we talk about just MOOCs, right, massive online, massive open online courses, which is kind of what this is, it's projected really to grow, 32%. I think one of the things that we're seeing, and that's until like 2025, but that's actually probably going to change. There's this idea that there was this huge surge of online courses prior to the pandemic. And so what we're seeing now is, data is showing that there are a lot of people who are choosing now to take gap years. Um, and what are they doing during the gap year? Well, now they're taking gap years. These millennials are taking gap years now to now learn more courses, to take more online courses, to learn additional skills, and to really just find additional things online where they can grow in certain areas. People are spending more time now to grow those passion projects. People are taking more time now to build businesses, right? And so when we look at, I think a lot of the data is showing that it's growing at a rapid pace, but they can't even really keep up with how fast it's growing. I think the current social unrest that has been, happening and across the country has shown that there is this enlightenment and really push of supporting businesses that align with people's values. And as learners and as professionals are looking to grow and they're being more conscious about how they spend their dollars, we're going to start seeing the industry even grow larger and have even seen a larger push for community, which is really, really huge and really large, and the monetization of those communities. And so, I mentioned it before, $11 billion is really that, the market, the overall kind of, online self-paced learning market is huge, but we're really focusing on that $11 billion market that we expect to grow tremendously in the next 4 to 5 years. And there's a large segment of the population, and I think there's a large part of the market that hasn't been captured yet that we think that we can grow and create as well.
Yeah, those are really interesting points. We're in the midst of a global pandemic. Everybody knows that. There are some terrible things happening, but some of the silver lining, if we may, is that people are taking a unique approach to things. People are trying to streamline and increase efficiency. Online is an important component of our day-to-day life, and so leaning into that, that's interesting that you're projecting some growth in the space, and I think that makes sense.
And if I could just add this right quick, there's when we start saying, communities of color, right? There's this immediate kind of sometimes focus on, well, that market it's small, right? It's tiny because we're trying to become hyper niche focused, right? I mean, I think we all know that the way that the world is becoming, not just the United States, but the world in general is becoming a more diverse world. If we're just talking about the United States in general, we understand that the workforce, right, is going to be more diverse in the next 5 years than ever before. In the next 10 years, we know that what the workforce will look like, and communities of color are not, we're not slowing down our growth. We're growing at exponential rates, right? And so, this idea that we're hyper niche focused and that means a small community, no, we're really hyper niche focused on a community that's really huge and really large that just haven't been focused on. But if you just take a step back, we're really talking about, this is a global community, right? And so one of the first people who applied to be on our platform was an instructor out of the UK who, so when we talk about just global and being able to be online and create a platform, this isn't just a United States focused platform. This is a global community where you have communities of color all across the world that's looking for opportunities to network, that's looking for opportunities to find, other people around the diaspora who they can connect with and learn from, who also have some of the same issues, right? The issues of representation and lack of representation online and media and et cetera isn't just a United States thing. This is a systemic thing that's all across the globe. And so when we have more people at the table, you find that someone in Sudan will say, oh my gosh, I didn't know that this is there. I've been looking for this. Someone in the UK, someone in Paris who will say, hey, I've been looking for this. I'm glad, to have this platform. And we're starting to see some sort of international attention to the platform. And so that's exciting too.
That is exciting. That is really exciting. Good point. There's a global opportunity, and globally there's plenty of market size out there. Let's continue along that kind of theme here. what do you see as your competitive advantage? What does the competitive landscape look like, and where do you fit in with other players in your space? I understand you're small, you're early stage, but where do you feel you bring value to maybe people who are either teaching on another course or who are still on the bench yet to come into the game?
Yeah, a lot of players in the space, and I think, I posted something not too long ago when it says, um, something along the lines of tech is only as inclusive and equitable as the voices at the table. And I think, you know, when I look at LinkedIn Learning, I'll just say LinkedIn Learning because they're really the largest player in the game when it comes to like professional development online. And what you look at the data, who uses LinkedIn Learning, and majority of the users of LinkedIn Learning are white males with a master's degree or higher. And so when you look at platforms that are created with really great intentions, oh my gosh, really great intentions, if you're not being very specific on how, if you're not doing it in a way that's equitable across the board, right, and you're not focusing solely on being able to level the playing field in certain areas, what happens is the gap becomes wider. And so that's what we're seeing with a lot of MOOCs. A lot of these online learning platforms are created, but not in a way where they are intentionally trying to level the playing field. And what ends up happening is the people who are using them across all the board on the online learning platforms are white males who are highly educated. And so if white males who are highly educated are the ones who are using these platforms in mass, right, without the platform saying, we need to find a way to find other individuals to use this platform as well. How do we appeal to them? The gap just continues to grow. And so when I think of our competitive advantage, I usually say, in three ways. I say that we're more equitable. And so we are a platform that is leveling the playing field and giving a mic to communities that generally haven't had an opportunity to speak on the mic, right? It isn't just inviting everyone to the party. It is, allowing people to actually have the mic and go to the DJ and be able to decide what music is played. And I think in that regard, I think that we're really strong in that area. I think we're more relevant. I think that being relevant, culturally relevant content, I think is really important. And I think that is really where we can strive. It isn't our platform isn't, we have one or two culturally relevant courses, during Black History Month or during this time of like social unrest. It's like all of our courses are culturally relevant. And someone may be listening and say, well, what do you mean by culturally relevant? Well, I've had, a senior leader who was a Black woman who said, I want to learn about how to become a better leader from another Black woman. Because why? Because as a Black woman, when I go into that meeting and I'm the only woman in that space, and I may be the only Black person in that space, there is some intersectionality of all of my identities that I need to make sure that the instructor who's giving me this information also can relate it to in their mind, they also are going through some of the same stuff, because that's really important, right? And so that course is going to be able to really change that individual in a way and really speak to that woman in a way that just hearing about general leadership, from someone else may not, right? And so that's really huge. And then when I talked about accessibility, right, I think that's really important. Price point is really important. I don't believe that people should have to pay an arm and a leg for education. And so we have priced our product in a way where more people can have access to it. So, when we think of our competitive advantage, I say more relevant, more equitable, and more accessible. And those are kind of my three points. I think, and I will say this, I don't see us I see our platform as a tool, right? It's an addition to, it isn't an either or, right? And so the same way how you have Netflix and Disney Plus, but you also have Amazon Prime and you also have Hulu, there are some people who are saying, I'm gonna go with either Amazon Prime or Hulu, But most people, if you have one, you have more than one, right? And so we want to we want to be another tool in the toolbox, right? We go hand in hand with LinkedIn Learning. We go hand in hand with Coursera. We go hand in hand with edX, because they're going to be able to teach some things in the technical, in the technical realm that we're not touching the technical stuff, right? We may have some technical courses, but we're really focusing on what we really think we can win are the soft skill courses, is the application of the knowledge. Now that you have the information, come to us to show you how you can navigate these waters as a person of color to win in these spaces. And so that's kind of how I view us.
Yeah, no, that's great. There's an opportunity to kind of increase market share for yourself without it being zero sum necessarily. You could be a part of a larger suite of tools, and that's one more. That's kind of part of the silver lining that we discussed, is that people are growing themselves. They're trying to pick up new courses, new skills, especially in entrepreneurship. And so being here in California with the advisors and mentors that you have, and helping people do that's something particularly special and important right now. And it looks like it will continue to be that way. A couple more thoughts, and we can kind of continue along that kind of process. Is you've discussed polling, you've gotten some survey data, you've built out some tech, you've actually recorded some content and shared it and provided a platform. Where are you in the big scheme of traction? And as you continue to develop and go into market, what is the process of growing from here? So what have you been able to accomplish so far, and where are you going in the near and long term?
Yeah, so we started this process. The day I decided that we're going to do this was in May, and so in a short amount of time, with a little bit of cash and a little bit of capital, we've had an opportunity to, as my advisor would say, a fundable CEO has to do three things: has to articulate a vision, has to be able to build a team, and has to be able to find resources. In a short amount of time, I've been able to come up with this vision, create this kind of foundation. And, we've built an MVP. We have a fully functioning MVP now, which means that, as of today, as of last week, individuals now can actually go on our platform and experience the early version of Melanence, can actually go and take a look at the platform, can experience the platform. They can touch, and click around. They can create a profile. And so people can do that today. We have almost 300 people on the platform right now, and that is we haven't spent any money on marketing. That is completely organic. So we haven't even really done anything, yet, with letting people know where we are, letting people know who we are. We have over, on the platform, we have about 80 instructors on the platform right now. And so they're creating courses. I think we have about 20 courses on the platform right now that's live that people can take a look at. And we anticipate by the end of the year, we'll have over 100 courses on the platform. We've been very specific on the type of content we want on the platform, obviously, because we are hearing, entrepreneurship is really big. And so we're really focusing on a lot of courses that center around how to monetize things that you do, marketing, et cetera. And so we're really excited about that. We think, after we do this raise, when we take some more capital, we'll really start pushing, the platform and really trying to grow our content. That's our number one thing, right? So, when we talk about go-to-market strategy, before we even start implementing that go-to-market strategy, the number one thing is growing that content. And so we believe that by the end of this year, with over 100 courses, we're really ready to hit 2021, hit the ground running. And so our go-to-market strategy, really what's going to be really, really key for us, number one, is our strategic partnerships. Strategic partnerships, we've seen with some other content, providers, and there's a huge push on, number one, 8 historically Black colleges and universities. And, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, went to Howard University, as alumnus of Howard. We have a Morehouse grad on our team. We have some really strong relationships, in our circle with, we're really great person who we're looking to be an advisor for us is the director of community college transfer program directly to HBCU, so it has a really great connection to HBCUs there. And so we think those strategic partnerships with these historically Black colleges and universities are going to help us to grow our user base tremendously. But then on the flip side, when it comes to the content, we're also working on some really strategic corporate partnerships that would allow, companies, some of these larger companies, to come in and have access to our, be able to share what they're doing, whether this be a Shopify, or whether this be a Slack, or whether this be, right? And so there's some great opportunities there to have them come in, do some webinars for our community, share about their platform and what they can do to help to benefit this community as well. So we think those strategic partnerships are going to be number one. And then in early 2021, we'll roll out an affiliate marketing program, which will allow instructors and users to share a link with their community. Instructors can share a link and say, hey, I just posted a course, come sign up. And when they sign up, then, when their community signs up, Eric, will get paid because Eric shared this link, right? And so that's going to be really huge. And we know that there's been a lot of companies that have seen a lot of growth in that way, just kind of organic growth, without having to do any kind of paid social. We're kind of staying away from paid social right now, just because we know a lot of people are there. Part of the reason why we're staying away from paid social right now is we need to wait until after the election and everything is done, because so much money is going into paid social right now that it's a space right now where every other post you're seeing an ad, and we're starting to see some different metrics than what we saw 3 months ago. So after things kind of get a little bit more quiet, then we'll hop back into paid ad. But we see that kind of as our way to really grow the platform, and we're excited about that type of growth. Yeah.
It's definitely hard to cut through the noise right now. Sounds like you're being really strategic about allocating your resources. And so that's a really important part of structured growth. And I think you're right, the opportunity to be able to, share and be compensated for those shares, and then create content and share, really help build a community around this. But I'm super excited about the corporate and affiliate marketing though as well. Last couple things here as we kind of wind down, you were talking about avoiding kind of paid digital marketing for right now. You're in the process of a $250,000 raise on Netcapital. You've had quite a bit of success up to this point. So congratulations on that. What would you, assuming that you're able to raise the full $250,000, what does the use of proceeds look like for that? Where do these investor dollars go?
Yeah, so I spoke earlier about these kits that we're sending to instructors. The number one thing for us is doubling down on content, right? Content is, we've heard it before. People say like cash is king, like content is king for us. And we do that by reducing the friction. And so being able to bring in, more instructors means that we're going to have to spend a little bit more money on sending kits. It means that, for every webinar that we do, right? So every webinar, we want to be able to have a professional camera, for those dynamos who we can't get to create a course. There's some dynamic people that we can't get to create a course because of just time, but we can sit down with them for an hour and a half and have a conversation, right? And so we see a large part of that raise going to helping us to build out our content. We do want to implement a few features on our website. So when we talk about development of the website, there are a few things that we want to create, right? One of those being a Quora-like question and answer function for users on the platform to be able to post questions. Hey, does anybody know a good startup lawyer? Yeah. Oh, and somebody else from the network and the community can respond. That's one of the things we want to implement. We want to implement this peer mentoring option as well. And so we understand that like development into that space, obviously, like that's going to cost a little bit. And then the last thing really is marketing. And we'll put a little bit of marketing money into marketing, a nice sizable amount. But that's really on the bucket is like number 3. The first is content. The second one is development. The third is marketing. And the fourth is team. We want to bring in, right now we don't have any development in-house. And so we would love to have, some development done in-house. And so we want to be able to have a little capital that will be able to help us do that. And we think that if we're able to raise this, do really hit this $250,000, this is going to give us, a nice, 11, 12 month runway until, to really build out the platform and be able to hit some of those milestones that we believe that, by the end of next year, we can have 5,000 users or more on the platform and really get ready to go into our traditional seed round raise to then, kind of elevate and really take our company to the next level.
That's great. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. I'm sure our investors appreciated that. Again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. This has been recorded and this will be posted on our YouTube channel and shared with everybody who registered. It's been a pleasure to sit down with you, Juan. Thank you so much for taking the time and hang out with us. Thanks for sharing your vision and your journey with Melanence. I'm really excited to be a very small piece of the process. So thank you so much for joining us, Juan.
Thank you for having me. This is great. I love talking about the company.
You do a great job. What I'll do, I'll make sure that everybody, again, gets access to this information. For more details, do not hesitate to visit netcapital.com, and you can search for Melanence, or netcapital.com/companies/Melanence. You can invest directly through the site with debit, credit card, ACH, or wire. You can also continue to ask more questions there. Looks like, there's one more. Yeah, we have a couple more minutes, Juan. How about we take this last question that just squeezed in right before the wire? So would you, Juan, describe what a course would look like from the beginning to end, the intro, the content, the conclusion, a little bit of clarity on the outline, so I can begin taping. Looks like you just recruited a content creator.
Yes, yeah, that's awesome. So really, we have this kind of winning formula for our courses. We understand, number one, people's time is really short, so people are not going to spend an hour and a half watching a course generally. And so we like people to take their courses and be anywhere from about 25 to 45 minutes. And that's broken down with an intro that has a nice flex in it from the beginning. And so you really start off with building the credibility instantly of why you are the person that should be delivering this content. So you start off, with that, and that's kind of our formula. Start off, you flex, you talk about what you're going to learn, 1, 2, 3, 4 points, and then each video in between talks about one of those 3 or 4 points that you mentioned. That first video is about 1 to 2 minutes long. Then each video after that, you want to keep anywhere from maybe 6 to 10 minutes for each video, and then you wrap it up. You tell people how they can find you, how they can follow you, and then you summarize what they've learned. And then if you have any sort of project, you can tell them about that project. And so, we have an amazing team who we can work with you to develop that course. We can work with you on layering that course. But one of the things that we want to make sure that people leave with from every course is there's something that they can actually say they learned right from that course. And so that's really important. And not try to overload it. I think one of the things right now is in most platforms, most people promote how long their course is. Oh, buy this course. There's 15 hours worth of content. There's 6 webinars. There's not. And to be honest, we heard from people, listen, people are not going through 10% of that stuff. Like, no one's really watching 15 hours. Like, yes, if you're in law school and you have to, read, 1,000 pages that night, then you'll read the 1,000 pages. But the reality is people want to be able to go there and learn something really quickly, teach them what you say you're going to teach them, and they'll be really happy and they'll go and watch your next video. And the more videos they watch, the more you get paid because you have more engagement on the platform. So.
I'm so glad you asked that, Michael. I think that was a fantastic question and a really good answer, Juan. And I'm really glad to hear that there is some guidance for those who have not developed a course before. As I mentioned before, I love the idea of bringing people who are already in the space. But I think one of the things I'm most excited about is your ability to, the way I like to refer to it, is bring players off the bench and put them in the game. People who do have knowledge and are highly skilled in specific spaces, but don't view themselves as an instructor or don't see themselves in the ecosystem for one reason or another. So very inclusive, very welcoming. And I think this is a fantastic message. Again, thank you so much for everybody who joined us, panelists, attendees, those of you who asked questions. Thank you so much. Please continue to keep the conversation going through the platform. If there's any way that Juan or I can help you get more acquainted with Melanence, we're happy to do so. So thank you so much for everybody for coming, and I think this will be the opportunity that we bring it home.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Take care, Juan. Thanks so much.